यमुना तीर बनसारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रजजन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रजजन रंजन यमुना तीर बनचारी यमुना तीर बनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 9th canto, 4th chapter, text number 67. Please repeat after me. Mat sevaya pratitam te. Mat sevaya pratitam te. Salokyadi chatushtayam. Salokyadi chatushtayam. Nechanti sevaya purnaha. Nechanti sevaya purnaha. Kuto anyat kala viplutam. Kuto anyat kala viplutam. Mat sevaya pratitam te. Salokyadi chatushtayam. Nechanti sevaya purnaha. Kuto anyat kala viplutam. Mat sevaya pratitam te. Salokyadi chatushtayam. Nechanti sevaya purnaha. Kuto anyat kala viplutam. Mat sevaya pratitam te. Salokyadi chatushtayam. Nechanti sevaya purnaha. kuto anyat kala viplutam matsevaya pratitam te salokyadi chatushtayam Ichanti sevaya purnaha kuto anyat kala viplutam. Word to word translation. Mat sevaya. You can repeat. By being engaged fully in my transcendental loving service. Pratitam. Automatically achieved. Te. Such pure devotees are fully satisfied. Salokyadi chatushtayam. The four different types of liberation. Salokya, Sarupya, Samipya and Sarsti. What to speak of Sayujya. Na, not. Ichanti, desire. Sevaya, simply by devotional service. Purnaha, fully complete. Kutaha, where is the question? Anyat, other things. Kala viplutam, which are finished in the course of time. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. My devotees, who are always satisfied to be engaged in my loving service, are not interested even in the four principles of liberation. Salokya, Sarupya, Samipya and Sarsti. Although these are automatically achieved by their service. What then is to be said of such perishable happiness as elevation to the higher planetary systems? Purport. Srila Bilva Mangala Thakura has estimated the value of liberation as follows. Mukti swayam mukalitanjali sevate asman dharmartha kama gataya samaya pratikshaha. Bilva Mangala Thakura realized that if one develops his natural devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mukti stands before him with folded hands to offer all kinds of service. In other words, the devotee is already liberated. There is no need for him to aspire for different types of liberation. The pure devotee automatically achieves liberation even without desiring it. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yenam Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pasyata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktaranda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Please repeat the translation. My devotees, who are always satisfied to be engaged in my loving service, are not interested even in the four principles of liberation. Salokya, Sarupya, Samipya and Sarsti. although these are automatically achieved by their service. What then is to be said of such perishable happiness as elevation to the higher planetary systems? So we see here the Supreme Personality of Godhead is continuing his conversations with whom? Who is he talking to? You already lost context, huh? Durvasa Muni. So the story is that Durvasa Muni has gone all the way up to Vishnu to get relief from the Sudarshana Chakra. And the Lord is giving an explanation of why he cannot help. Right? He's saying, I am completely at the mercy of my devotees. I am not at all independent. I can't do anything. I am always indebted to my devotees. And this is again a very interesting verse. Actually, it's also very important. I'll just read the preceding verses, 2-3 verses before this, because in the previous class we had read up to 9.4.63. Now I'll read from 64 onwards. 9.4.64. O best of the Brahmanas, without saintly persons, for whom I am the only destination, I do not desire to enjoy my transcendental bliss and my supreme opulences. Many people ask, why is this world created? Why are we created? People ask this question. God is, seems to... why is God saying, you either worship me or you serve me, or, you will suffer in this world and all those things. But actually, the Supreme Lord and all the living entities are meant to enjoy together. Here, Lord is saying, without the saintly persons for whom I am the only destination, I do not desire to enjoy my transcendental bliss and my supreme opulences. Because, these are just like, all of us, we have a desire to enjoy this world, but with our friends and near and dear ones that are close to us. Without that, it feels meaningless. Right? Next verse. (9.4.65) saying, since pure devotees give up their homes, wives, children, relatives, riches, and even their lives simply to serve me without any desire for material improvement in this life or in the next, how can I give up such devotees at any time? 9.4.66. As chaste women bring their gentle husbands under control by service, the pure devotees, who are equal to everyone and completely attached to me in the core of the heart, bring me under their full control. And then the words, this week's words. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning one of our greatest of our acharyas, Bilva Mangala Thakura. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, during his life on this earth, he referenced a few of the important teachings of Vaishnava acharyas. And this Bilva Mangala Thakura wrote Krishna Karnamrita. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommended that all devotees should read Krishna Karnamrita. His story, I think all of us know his story, but it is sometimes it's helpful to remember again. And just remember and relish the important elements of these things. So Bilva Mangala Thakura in his previous life was, previous life means in his before he became a great devotee, he was a very rich aristocratic person. And, unfortunately, because of his, wealth and everything, he somehow fell in love with a prostitute. And he was very, very attached to this prostitute. She used to live, he used to live in a village on the bank of the river in South India. And she lived on the other side of the river. So he had, every day in the evening, he would go cross the river, go to her house, and spend time with her. He was very, very attached to her. And one time what happened, his elderly father passed away. And there was all grieving in the house, everybody had gathered. And then the final rites were going to be performed. So while the final rites were being performed, Bilva Mangala Thakura is telling the priest who's performing the final rites of his father. He is very impatiently looking at the time. I guess in those days there were no watches. But he was looking at the time. And he was telling the priest, "Oh priest, please finish up this puja that you're doing. Please finish up. But he was not telling, why he wanted it to be completed. He wanted it to be completed quickly because it was getting late to go see the prostitute whose name was Chintamani. Can you imagine? All said and done, one's own father, right, has died. Almost all living entities, all human beings, will feel a deep sense of loss when an immediate relative like father or mother, somebody passes away. Right? But his attachment to the prostitute was so much that on the day the father has passed away, final funeral rites are being performed, and he is impatient to finish up the funeral rites and go meet the prostitute. See, this is the nature of attraction to tamasic happiness. It binds a living entity. See, that's why Prabhupada used to say, this whole material world, Krishna also says in the Gita, it is run by the three modes of material nature. Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. This whole, material world is driven by the modes of material nature. And Prabhupada used to give this wonderful example. If you get infected by a particular disease, then you have to pay the consequence of the disease. Right? There was another example Prabhupada used to give to talk about the three modes. Anybody remembers what example Prabhupada used to give? Like glasses. Imagine glasses that are permanently, attached to your face. And if you infect with passion, right? And let's say the colored glasses would be red colored glasses, right? So these are permanently attached to your face. You'll only see red and nothing else. You're forced to see red. And tamoguna, let's say it's blue color glasses. You're forced to see blue. You cannot see without that. And sattvaguna is considered to be clear glasses. There is still a glass, right? There is still material, but it is the clearest. You can see things as they are. So, Bilva Mangala Thakura was so overcome by passion for this prostitute that he was hurrying up. And then he wrapped up the ceremonies quickly and gathered some good foodstuffs and started heading to see the prostitute. At that time, suddenly the weather changed and there was huge thunder and lightning and torrents of rain started pouring. By the time he reached the banks of the river was very, very full of water and very violent, just because the thunderstorm. And no boatman would cross. They're all gone away. They'd gone home. The boatman was not there. But he had such a desire to see the prostitute that he decided, I'm going to swim across this tumultuous river. He jumped into the water, and the water was flowing with such force that it was pulling people away. The river was frothy and brown. Some of us recently went to Rishikesh and we saw Mother Ganga in her fury. I had been to the same place in Rishikesh in 2000. That was in January. I so distinctly remember the water was blue in color, crystal clear water. You could see the bottom of the river, crystal clear blue water. And this time, because of the heavy rains, the water was muddy. Like we went to take bath, dhoti was full of mud. I recently also was taking out, there was mud from the Ganges in the dhoti still. Right? So like that, the river he was getting pushed away from the force of the water, but he was still struggling to swim against it. At a point it was almost about to drown. So he was trying to hold on to something. Because it was such a pressure, and he was going against the pressure, flow of the water, and trying to swim across. In this desperation, he was holding on. Then suddenly he found something like a log and he caught onto it. Oh, it was relief. Then with holding that, he struggled and reached, with the last ounce of strength that he had, reached the end of this thing. And said, then he started. Then he suddenly looked. He was holding on to a dead corpse. And then he just threw it away. But still, he was so driven by passion to see Chintamani. And he just cleaned himself. Water still pouring. He goes to her house. Chintamani, as usual, she would get ready in the evening, wait for him. But today she saw there was such heavy thunder and lightning. See, in those days there were no phones, mobile phones or anything like that. So she assumed that, he's not going to come. And she had also heard that, his father had passed away. And so he said, oh, obviously he's not going to come today. And so she had retired to her room and then closed the main door. And she lived, her bedroom was in the second floor. And because it was raining, she had closed the windows. He came and he banged on the wall, on the door. But because of the thunder and lightning, nobody could hear. It was like one more huge thunder lightning going on. So she didn't respond. Then he came out to the window and threw some stones at the window, thinking that she will respond. But she didn't. So then he said, okay, let me just climb up and then go near and then bang the window, then she can hear me. Or I can just pry open the window. So he starts climbing. There was a small vine next to the window. He starts holding the vine and climbing up. And as he's climbing up, suddenly he's realizing that there is a snake in those vines. And he's holding on to the tail of the snake and he's just climbing up. The snake is also scared. It was almost about to bite him, and he's just and suddenly he's able to throw it away. And he bangs on the window. And Chintamani then, because it's so close to her bed, she wakes up and she opens the window and lets him in. And then he comes inside. He's panting, he's like, perspiration from the experience with almost being bitten by a snake. He comes down and he explains the whole thing. How much I struggled to come here to see you today. It was raining so heavily, the river was frothing. And I swam across this, and then I was almost drowning. Then somehow I held on to a log, and then I saw the log was actually a dead person. I struggled and came here. And then you had all locked your door, and I tried to climb up, and then as I was climbing up the vines, there was a snake. And the snake almost bit me. But still I climbed up and then came over here. See, I'm here. Chintamani was very surprised at how much of quote-unquote austerity had taken to come to see her. And she said, oh, if only you had the same amount of devotion to the Supreme Lord Krishna, then you would have been liberated. Can you imagine? This struck Bilva Mangal Thakur very, very deeply. Immediately, he left the company of Chintamani and he went back home. The very next day, he decided, I'm going to go to Vrindavan and dedicate my life to serve Krishna. Go look for him and serve him. And so he set out from his house, always remembering this word, this instruction from Chintamani. And he set out and he started going. On the way, he took on the way he was taking, he was actually dressed aristocratically from his life. And he was taking food from different places while he was traveling. And one village, he reached that village, and then he happened to see one very, very beautiful woman. Because of his conditioning of being attached to the bodily form of beautiful woman, in the form of Chintamani, his passion was aroused. And he started following her. This was a very chaste lady from a very respectable family, and she started noticing that somebody is following her, but she very carefully just went towards her house and reached her house. And she told her husband, see, this person, he looks very respectable, but he is following me like this. I don't know what it is. Just ask him what is going on. And so her husband came out and asked. He called him, oh, please come in, because he looks so respectable, well dressed. Please come, sit down. He said, I'm sorry I'm asking you this. I heard that from my wife that you've been following her. He came all the way over here. How can I help you? What is going on? Bilvamangala Thakura was so overcome by passion. He said, oh, I am so attracted to your wife. I wanted to embrace her. That's why I was following her. It is said that this was a very respectable Brahmana, and in the Brahmanical tradition, a guest is considered to be, to say Atiti Devo Bhava. A guest is considered very important. And he said, oh, really? Okay. I don't know what to tell you. You're asking such things. But okay, I will ask her to fulfill your desire. And he called his wife and said, I don't know what to say, but this person seems so respectable. He's saying he wants to embrace you. And he's a guest in our place. You should just let him do it. And Bilvamangala Thakura, goes to this wife who was following her husband's instruction. And there, she's standing there very nervous and he goes over there. Then he says, oh mother, can you please give me the pin from your hair? And she takes out the pin and gives. Bilvamangala Thakura takes that and pierces both his eyes. And then he comes to his senses and just pierces both his eyes, and then he says that these eyes are so conditioned by attraction to the opposite sex that they're not able to distinguish between what is dharmic and what is adharmic. Right? On the Shastras, or even Krishna, even in this material world, Krishna is not telling, you don't enjoy. You suffer in this material world. No, actually, even in this material world, the Supreme Lord has created it in such a way that you can, by following the Shastric, Daiva Varnashrama system that the Lord has created, you can actually, in this material world also, connect everything to Krishna and still experience material happiness, the best of the bargain, to a certain extent. That is called dharmic happiness. Happiness that, when you follow the Varnashrama dharma, like attraction to the opposite sex. Yes, when you reach the ashram, finish the brahmacharya, and you're ready to take the ashram of Grihastha, yes, there is some pleasure associated with family life, but there is for that you have to pay a price. Right? Just like, you want to buy something, you go to a shop, you pay some money, and then you buy what you want and you lawfully use it. And the price for the Grihastha's happiness is taking care of the remaining remaining ashramas. That Grihastha takes care of the brahmacharis, the vanaprasthas and sannyasis, and they they bring up children in a Krishna conscious way. These two are the sacrifices of the ashram. You satisfy these two, then you can enjoy. Right? So Bilva Mangal Thakura takes this extreme step because his eyes are so conditioned that he is not able to distinguish between, oh, this person is my wife. Right? And Chanakya Pandit says, Matruvat Paradhareshu. He's describing the qualities of a learned person. Who is a learned person? And this is one of Matruvat Paradhareshu. One has to look on everybody else other than your wife as a mother. And so Bilvaman Thakura then heads off to go to Vrindavana. Is blind and is still goes all the way to Vrindavan. And there it is said that he lived for 700 years in Vrindavan. He was such a great devotee. He would sing, he wrote this book Krishna Karnamrita, and then he would sing very beautiful prayers to the Lord. And it said that the Supreme Lord himself would come as a cowherd boy and then say, "Oh, old man, you're blind, you are here in this forest, what are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm praying to my Supreme Lord Krishna and I'm remembering him." And then he would say, "Oh, you seem very old and frail, let me give you some milk to take care of yourself." And it said that the Supreme Lord Krishna would come as a cowherd boy and regularly feed him milk. Can you imagine? How the Lord reciprocates with his devotees. He comes as a cowherd boy to give milk to the blind Bilva Mangala Thakura. And so Prabhupada quotes him, Mukti Swayam Mukritanjali Sevate Asman Dharmartha Kama Gataya Samaya Pratikshaha. When one becomes a devotee of the Lord, Mukti is just waiting, like a servant waits, folded hands. "Oh Master, please tell me, how can I serve you?" Right? So, very, very wonderful instructions Supreme Lord is giving to Durvasa Muni. The verse previous to this was also something that struck me very deeply. As chaste women bring their gentle husbands under control by service, the pure devotees who are equal to everyone and completely attached to me in the core of the heart bring me under their full control. In the Varnashrama system, the Vedic tradition, the main training that's given to children, girls, to become very nice mothers and wives, is how to be chaste and serve the husband, assist the husband in service of the Supreme Lord. It is very nice over here, the Supreme Lord is quoting this. It is not that, Vedic tradition is exploitative system. It is forcing women to serve the man. That is not the understanding at all. As he's saying here, as a chaste woman as chaste women, this is in plural, women, bring their gentle husbands under control by service. by very chastely, very faithfully, very lovingly serving the husband, then the husband becomes indebted to the wife. And even though he's always, eager to make sure that the wife's desires are satisfied. If, what she asks or requests is what is done. This was the Vedic tradition. It's very counterintuitive. In this day and age, right, there is so much talk about women are feminism, women are liberated, women are this, women are that. But Prabhupada, very, very, there was in the last time Prabhupada came to America in 1976. It happened in Chicago. A reporter there, a lady reporter, was very, from the feminism was very, very strong in those days. There was a wave of feminism. And she kept asking questions like this, because she had read somewhere in Prabhupada's books that women are less intelligent. And Prabhupada writes it. And she kept asking more and more questions about this, this thing. And Prabhupada, in that day and age, in America, it is a very unpopular thing to say. Just like now, right? If somebody says women are less intelligent, you'll be cancelled. Right? Cancel culture. What do you mean women are less intelligent? Prabhupada is quoting, I'm not talking about material intelligence. I'm talking about spiritual intelligence. And this is the nature of your engagement. The soul is the same. The soul is the same in the man's body and the woman's body. But first of all, this body itself is a punishment. Whether you are a man or a woman, it's a punishment. That's the first thing you should understand. The capabilities of the soul, we are meant to be Sat Chit and Ananda. And we experience Asat, Achit and Nirananda in this material world. Why is that? Because you are engaged in this body. As long as you have a material body, you will experience Achit, Asat and Nirananda. And it so happens that if you are engaged in a woman's body, your attachment to this material world is stronger. Your attachment to children, family is much greater. It is natural, because a mother has to take care of the family. If she doesn't have love and affection and a greater sense of this, and she also acts very detached way, then who will take care of the children? Who will take care of the family? Who will care for everybody? It is a natural thing. The word Stri means expansion. It is a very natural thing that a person in a woman's body, Madhupuri Prabhu puts it very nicely. He says they actually experience much more variegatedness in emotions. Women are able to sense much, much finer levels of emotions than men can sense. And it's a very necessary, very useful attribute. But the challenge is, it is very difficult for them to transition from one emotion to the next. You feel a strong emotion, you get caught up by it. You see, I am not in a woman's body. I don't know that for a fact, but because the Shastras are telling, senior Vaishnavas are telling, I can ask, by looking at my experience, I'm going to be 50 years old. And in my 50 years of experience, I have also experienced the same thing. If a woman is truthful and they are a little bit, discerning, if they sit and think about their own life, they'll say, oh yeah, that is true. So one has to, these are realities of life. You can't just wish away, that this should be different, right? So like that, the Vedic system was created to take into account these different differences that exist, and there is in the Vedic system, every single living entity has a place, as a role to play, has a meaning, in life. And when they do that in connection with the Supreme Lord, and their life is fulfilled, they are happy, the whole world is happy. But when you try to go against the arrangement of this world, and you try to, make things different, like in the name of feminism, Prabhupada used to say that he's talking about in those days itself. Men are nicely exploiting women in the name of feminism. Prabhupada said, this culture in America, you have literally created prostitutes. Use very strong word. I know it's not a very pleasurable word to use. Literally, that's what you've created. And there are consequences to this. Men and women mix freely without an outside of marriage. And they think that they're enjoying life to the fullest. People in conservative cultures like India are sitting and thinking, oh, I wish I could be in America. I could also enjoy unrestrictedly. Yesterday, I was reading an article in that was forwarded in the Temple President's Forum. One BJP MP has proposed a bill to make live-in relationships illegal. Actually, in the sense, it is already illegal by law, but they want to really create a law against it. And as you can imagine, in this day and age, oh, you are this and that, it's my freedom, I can do what I want. Right? And there's a big debate going on this. And people are convinced that, oh, they can enjoy unlimitedly, by doing these kind of things. But what is the reality? It is a natural loss of nature that a woman's beauty, physical beauty, lasts for a very short time. For those short years, you may exploit, you may enjoy, quote unquote enjoy. And who's going to bear the consequences of that, for the rest of your life? Whose promiscuity is encouraged. And then the men are like, why should I take care? I can get access to one without marrying. Then why should I do this? In the name of feminism, women are being exploited significantly much more than what so-called exploitation in a traditional society. That is the reality. People don't understand this. You will realize after you are 30, 35, 40, but what is the use of realizing at that time? You have created a society where children in this country right now, about almost 50% of children are born out of wedlock. This is the statistic. 40%. 40% of all children born into this society today are born out of marriage. In certain races, it is 80%, 70%. Can you imagine what that number even means? Can you imagine what problems we are creating in this world? We all have to see this, because the seeds are being sown now. In 20 years, those seeds will fructify. I get shivers down my spine thinking about what that society is going to look like. Because what we're seeing now was planted 20 years ago. This itself is so painful. Right? So miserable. What will this society become? So, the Supreme Lord, look at the example the Lord is using. So wonderful to just see a chaste woman bring the gentle husbands under control by service. The pure devotee, who are equal to everyone and completely attached to me in the core of the heart, bring me under their full control. We're all supposed to be servants. The word servant is such a degrading word in this. Nobody wants to be servant. Everybody wants to be a master. But actually, the Supreme Lord wants to experience the pleasure that a servant is experiencing. And so the Lord comes down as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He says, how do I taste the pleasure that Radharani is experiencing as being my servant, my devotee? So, look at they call this oxymoron, right? As devotees are eager to serve the Lord is eager to serve them. That is the nature of real happiness. Almost all of these are counterintuitive. One has to always look at opportunities how to serve a Vaishnava, how to serve a senior Vaishnava. And a senior Vaishnava is always thinking, how do I serve? How do I serve? You pass on that service in the parampara system all the way to Krishna. That is the nature of how we are supposed to learn this during our apprenticeship as devotees here. So very wonderful instruction by the Supreme Lord himself to the Dasa Muni that we can all remember. So time. We can just end with just maybe one question if anybody has any questions or comments. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that is the reality of this world. Kali Yuga, though, the holy name has such a wonderful effect. Khalau dosha nidhe rajan asti eko mahagunaha kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha paramrajet. Just like the problems of Kali Yuga are so vast, so deep, so unfathomable, unsolvable, but the weapon that is there in this Kali Yuga in the name of the holy name is so powerful, so unlimited. Just look at our own lives. What were we before we came in touch with Srila Prabhupada? What were we before we came in touch with the holy name? And what are we in such a short time? By people taking to the holy name, anything, miracles can happen. In fact, the next 10,000 years is supposed to be the golden age. And we should preach. We should all become devotees. Just by our behavior, people should become attracted. And we can give everybody the holy name, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. And in this material world, we can create embassies of the spiritual universe. So that's why at least we should create these communities of devotees so that people can see, it is possible to live in a traditional way following the instructions of the Lord and experience um, the Vaikuntha Loka being here in this material world. Okay, we'll stop here. Granthraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Bol Premanande.
Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavansam Sri Rupam Chakrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya